Recording has started.
Okay, great. Okay, Cheryl, why don't you start with the preamble?
The preamble, remote access to information and participation. In accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N3320, declaring a state of emergency regarding the COVID-19 outbreak, and Mayor London and Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency issued on February 25, 2020, including the guidance for gatherings issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health Officer, directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their board and committee meetings to convene remotely via Microsoft Teams and will allow remote public comment via teleconference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made a part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as it affects the legislative process. Chair Wolf, do you want to read meeting decorum?
Sure. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force this committee may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and/or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Okay, please call the first item. Call to order.
Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Let's do roll call. Member Hill.
Present.
Member Hill present. Member Wong.
Present.
Member Wong present. Chair Wolf.
Present.
Present. Chair Wolf present. We have a quorum.
Okay.
I am not aware of any agenda changes.
Okay, members, any adjustments or changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, let's move to item number 2.
Item number 2, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Okay, any members of the public who wish to participate in public comment? Now's the time. I don't see any attendees.
This is Member Wong, and I just want to state for the record that Ms. Leger's shirt is awesome.
Yeah.
You just said what I was thinking.
Record. As I said to Chair Wolf, I've got genie pants to match.
Right.
It must go in the minutes.
Okay, we'll close public comment this time. Let's call the next item.
Okay, just a second. Item number 3, next request. I heard from Mr. Reed, and he knows that the committee meeting was beginning at 5:30. I told him to look on the agenda for information on how to access the committee meeting. Mr. Reed, are you present?
I see one
There's
attendee.
nobody else in the meeting with us at this time.
There's one attendee showing, but there's
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. It wasn't showing up previously. I'll go ahead and unmute them and we can find out.
Okay.
Hello, caller. We have unmuted you just in case you are a participant to this item.
No. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Hey, it's David Bilfell. It took me a while to get on because it's the second Tuesday, so Microsoft had some big fat update. What item number are you on?
Item number 3, next request, but we're still waiting for the presenter, so we'll probably move this item to later in the agenda.
I promise you I'm not the presenter on next request, but I may have some comments on it.
Okay.
Can I just give you a quick general public comment for item 2?
Sure, we can reopen public comment. Item number 2, go ahead. Please wait for Ms. Leger. She's got the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We will sell no wine until it is time.
Mr. Bilfell, are you ready to begin?
I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Just a very quick thing. It's not on the agenda tonight, so this would be the right time for it. The last meeting of the IT committee was March 22nd, and I don't see the minutes from that meeting. So perhaps if IT is going to continue to meet from time to time, next time would be good to have both sets of minutes. Because, you know, the historical record is very important, and when the Smithsonian calls, you'll want this. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Mr. Pilpel, and we'll be sure to notify the Library of Congress too. All right. Member Wong.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick comment or response. So the minutes are there. It's a little confusing because they are accessible from the website under committees. If you look at the sidebar, you'll be able to see the IT committee meetings from there. And unfortunately, they're not linked from anywhere else, but the minutes are available.
Yeah, we usually will have them on the agenda so we can approve them. You know, if you want to be a hardcore Robert's Rules parliamentarian, then you wouldn't be able to run your current meeting unless you approved the previous meeting, you know, to certify or ratify the actions that were taken, more or less. So, okay. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we're going to close public comment now for good. And with regards to the next request, let's move this item down, and we'll see if the representative shows up. And if not, then we'll just bring it back and discuss it then. So if there's no objections, we'll move on to the next item and hold item number 3 on the table. Please call the next item number 4.
Item number 4, Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Information Architecture Support Proposal. Before we start on this, would you like me to email Mr. Reed and just tell him that we've begun the meeting?
Sure.
Okay, so if you could just hang on a second while I do that I just want to make sure that I get him. Okay, item number 4. Okay, we can commence with item 4. I sent Mr. Reed Ducey an email telling him that we had started the meeting. So, and I gave my cell number too. So if he has questions, he can call me.
Okay. All right. Item number 4 is a review and proposal for a website refresh of the navigation for the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website, referred to as the Information Architecture Proposal. I want to thank both Member Wong and Member Hill for their work on this and their presentation. And how about I hand it off to one of you two, and you can present it how you wish.
Do you want to go ahead, Member Hill?
I'm happy to follow you, Vice Chair Wong.
Okay. So yeah, we have this document here linked, and essentially what we did, Member Hill and I were to asynchronously look at the current architecture of our navigation, and I think it's pretty clear to all of us as well as members of the public that it's not super intuitive in the way that it's currently organized. And so what we've done here is we have a current architecture listed on page 2 of the packet, all the way through page, I think, halfway or so through page 4. And so what we did is also denote any links that we think don't make sense to include. They've either been replaced in the new architecture. For example, with the Good Government Guide, we've replaced it with a link to the newer version of the Good Government Guide, one that's probably more of a permalink, or fully just removing some of the information. I think a good example of that is the summary. I think there's a summary description of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, and I'm not sure where that text comes from, but I think we could make that information much clearer. Additionally, like a list of the current members of the task force, I think that could go under the section about us instead. So some of these things have been removed. And then moving on from page 4 through part of page 6, you can see we have a proposal for a new architecture, which I think makes much more sense. A couple of other things that I wanted to note is we've included a couple more pieces of information, things like relevant laws, regulations, and guides, and then making sure that we've listed all the committees. Actually, there's one missing. We probably want to add the IT committee under bullet point 3, section C. You can see there in the new architecture, it's not listed. So that will be another addition that we'll probably want to take note of. And then below that, Member Hill has left some notes, which I think are really great in talking about some of the updates that we do want to make and like why, and then also giving more information about the more detail about the information that will show up below some of those links. And then lastly, Member Hill linked to the City of Alameda and their Open Government Commission. And I think their homepage, I agree with Member Hill that it's very straightforward. It gets kind of to the heart of the information that members of the public would need right away on that homepage. And I think it would be a full redesign, and I would love to get to that point. I don't know when or how we do that, but that would be awesome. So that's kind of the general summary of what we have here. And I kind of just wanted to hear from the public about what they think, if this is an improvement, if they have any feedback. But before we get to that, Member Hill, is there stuff you want to add to that?
Thank you for that overview. I agree. Everything that you said is true. I felt like that. As you could tell, I paid particular attention to the homepage, and a lot of the thoughts that I had were around the homepage, and so I do feel like that it would be. I think we're serving the public, but we're also serving ourselves by having this opportunity to make our site much more intuitive for the public, and so that I just wanted to stress that I understand that there is probably another version down the road that might entail a much heavier redesign, but hopefully we can accomplish what you see here just by reorganizing the menu options as Ms. Wong has highlighted here, but then also take advantage of the opportunity to just fill out the homepage with some really important information. And I believe that currently the location, the multiple locations of where we have information about agendas and upcoming meetings and past meetings, hopefully we'll be able to consolidate that and put that in kind of like a single place, so that it'll make it easier for everyone, us included, to be able to get to that information in the future, and then just putting it right there on the right there on the homepage. So that my hope is that we can provide the most relevant information to the public. You'll note that there's some stressing of on the homepage to the public about not only how to file a complaint, but also how to just generally enter into the system of filing records requests. So an educational opportunity as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna chime in here. So I've read through this pretty intensely, being a website developer and content curator and manager for a full-time job. You know, this is an important big step, because you know, not everybody is tech savvy, or there's a lot of digital division, and that gets created because websites are not navigatable to the information that's needed, and really want to try to keep things as close to 2 clicks, no more than 2 clicks as possible. Start drilling down, too far, and you end up in a rabbit's hole, and you never know how to get back out. There's also sometimes the need for not staying on the same window or the same tab of a browser. Sometimes it's preferable to have it open up into a new window or a new tab, so that if it's relevant material to what they had been reading, so they don't have to keep going back and forth. So there, certain nuances for actual just usage. I think everything that you've kind of laid out here is very comprehensive. It's very well done and well researched. I appreciate that. The one thing that always bothered me was number 5. Just having the word documents. It's not clear what that really means. And I would have preferred a more general term of resources. That's what most websites use for, the set of laws, that kind of stuff. But I think also our orders of determination, the work that we do, our product, needs to stand out from that. And so I think instead of just the word resources, there needs to be, something else. There needs, like, just the word determinations. Maybe another section would be, determinations and other, I don't know, other decisions or something like that. But I think that deserves kind of its own section, which would also include the annual, any of our product, essentially. I think that would be good. I mean, because you have pretty well laid out the upcoming and past hearings. That's very flushed out. But in the end, it's the order of determination that everybody's looking for. The second thing is ADA. Now, this can be a very difficult kind of task, and there are long-standing website checkers that are specifically designed to capture compliance and non-compliance with actually fairly new law around website development for people with disabilities. So there are actually two sections of law. One is Title 504 of the Rehab Act of 1973, which is basically regarding government buildings and government access by the public. Section 508 is specific to disability. Lots of times the ADA tends to kind of be all-encompassing for all of that, and Title II of the ADA is what covers website development. So, you know, what can be done is, you know, one of the ways to do this is to do a sandbox website with the same template. You know, you could even just do plain HTML, doesn't matter, because that's really what the current website is anyway. It's pretty much just plain HTML. Doesn't have a whole lot of eye candy or you know, JavaScript or what have you on it. And just outside of the standard template that's there, like the header and the footer, because that's not really because that's ubiquitous throughout the entire city website. We could at least run through all the pages and all the content on a sandbox and then test it out until we're ready to hand it off and make it live, get ready for production. And I'm pretty sure we can get some space from Department of Technology to be able to do that, because what you've presented here is much larger than what we currently have. Okay, which leads to the next questions I have, and these are kind of like two separate roles. One is content curation, and the other is content management. Content curation is somebody, you know, watching and monitoring all the content on the site to determine what needs to stay, what needs to go, what's working, what not working, so on and so forth. And the content manager is the one who's actually doing the work of updating the website. And we need to kind of figure out those roles. I think the content curation is something on our end, and the content management is something whoever has their hands on the control of website development, you know, to be able to do that. Now, I don't know whether that happens, and maybe Cheryl and Victor can lend some light to this as to whether it's somebody in the clerk's office or whether there is an order, you know, requested to somewhere else, like the Department of Technology to do it, or the Office of Digital, I can't remember the name of it. There's another digital office that manages digital information. So I'll stop there. I spoke a lot, and maybe you can answer some of those questions.
If I may, real quick, I'll just, for the sake of notifying folks, I do unfortunately have a standing commitment that's from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So just in the event that that I need to leave between that time period, just wanted to let everybody know.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. Okay.
I'll also just mention that I that was one of the questions that I had to about who, like, I would love to get more information about who does or what the process is like currently today for making updates. And I think you make a very good point that that's going to be an important thing for us to know, because the freshness of the content and our ability to get things up there is extremely important. So, and I'm sure that that our worthy clerks can help us understand that a little bit more.
I wonder also, before I hand it off to them, also is, I think it'd be worth noting which is going to be more dynamic content, or which pages are going to have more, more regular updates versus more static, maybe brochure type of pages. And that way we can also create a list of, here are the pages, whoever's going to do that work. These are the ones that you're going to be working on the most. And maybe if it's more than one person, they have, they can divvy up the labor or what have you. Maybe there's a schedule to look at certain things or to update things at certain regular periods of time during the month or the year or what have you, that kind of thing. So let's get some input from our administrative staff. Cheryl or Victor, if you have any input on this.
This is Victor. I am able to make general updates to our website. Add a line, take away a line in terms of minutes, documents, and so forth. But in terms of overall design, I don't think that is in our office at all.
Okay. Do you know who?
I do not know. I believe it might be the cities. They do the entire city all at once.
Okay.
Because the last time we had an update to the website, it was citywide, not just a specific department.
Okay. So it's
Victor,
probably
I'm sorry.
central webmaster, right? Or webmistress.
I'm not too involved in that part of it. I just don't know that. I know that when it happened, it was many departments all at once.
Okay.
But in terms of adding a line for documents, reports, and stuff like that, I am perfectly able to do that myself. But in terms of design, I can't touch that.
Victor, may I ask a question, please? To what extent, I'm curious, do you have the ability to make changes? Because I understand that as it comes, when it comes to like where the menus are, what it looks like, what's on the header, what's on the footer, is one thing. I'm curious. I think one of the major things that we're going to be concerned about are like making changes to like the main menu items. I think that we've got. It sounds like to me that we've got pretty good control over, let's say, like the homepage, as far as like being able to make updates and
moving the menus around. I've never touched that myself. I don't even know if I have that ability.
Okay. So let me suggest this. There is this new department that got created about 4 or 5 years ago called Digital Services, and it's under the city administrator's office. And basically, they set digital accessibility and inclusion standards for the city's, all the city's digital services and web content. So it might be good to maybe at our next meeting to have, or just maybe one of you might want to engage them in preparation for the next meeting to see if we can get this kind of ball on the road once the task force has approved the this new navigation. So it's a very interesting website. If you go visit it, they've got lots of information. And I think I've met the director. Oh no, it's changed. Sid Harrell's the new one. I don't remember who the very first one was. I remember meeting them. Anyway,
it was Carrie Bishop. She left. I'll talk about that in public comment.
Oh, okay, that's right. And so this might be a good place to start that ball rolling, because it's got to have the filter for disability, almost from the start anyway. So, all right, let's open it up for public comment. We can kind of roll pretty flexibly here. Yeah, Member Wong, before we do that.
Yeah, before this. Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just really quickly, I was thinking, I agree with your renaming documents to resources. And how do you feel about renaming or moving orders of determination and our annual reports and any other work product to be under like a title, our work?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I definitely think getting in touch with digital services is the way to go. I think if you look at their site or if you look at sfgov.org, the new homepage for like the entire city, it's pretty clear there is some path to getting to a better looking website or a more modernized website. So maybe we can be another guinea pig for them.
There you go. All right, let's open up for public comment because we got some more items and want to make sure we can get it to as many of them as possible before Member Hill needs to leave. So I think we have one person here. Cheryl, since it's only one person, I'm going to waive the limits right now because we're having pretty free flow of discussion here. So Victor, if you can just open the microphone, that'd be great.
Mr. You're unmuted.
Okay, Mr. Popel, if you'd like to join in the conversation here.
Okay. Just like this morning, do I need to stand up and raise my right hand? I swear. Oh, no, it's not that here.
No.
Oh,
Unless you've been implicated in that hearing.
I don't believe I have. I really don't. I hope not. Let's not even, never mind. Okay. Hey, what about the website? You know, there's a proposal to update the task force website, and it's fantastic, and let's talk about it. So yes, Carrie Bishop was the first head of the digital services team. She left. Sid Harrell is now the head. That's Sid CYD, who's a woman who I've not met. And there's a Jane Gong, who's the deputy head. I don't know either of them. I am generally not a fan of the new sf.gov architecture. I don't like the sans serif font and the size and all the white space. I don't find it particularly helpful. Apparently some people do. I don't. I actually like the old architecture, and well, let me rephrase. I like aspects of the old architecture in the way the current task force site is structured, like the Board of Supervisors under the Board of Supervisors framework. I think that there's still room to tweak that and move things around and make it a heck of a lot more intuitive along the lines of what the both of you, I can call you the both of you, are suggesting. I would be careful about removing content because I think there may be a couple of things that you could drop, but most of the other stuff, I think it's just a matter of putting it somewhere else so that it's more intuitive to find. I've said before that the complaint, it's never been clear to me why we've got a complaint process and complaint procedures, and then a summary of the complaint procedures, and then a how-to document. And it seems like there's some stuff that could be collapsed and condensed there. Similarly, I think the document that Member Wong referenced, that's the summary of the task force and the ordinance, that somehow seemed either dated or redundant, or if it wasn't redundant, maybe it was repetitive and redundant. But anyway, there's something to that. I have no objection to renaming resources and having a section that differentiates between, our work or the task. Our work sounds a little more like you're, getting caught into the vortex. Maybe task force work or something that's more third party rather than possessive. See, somebody called Cheryl. Cheryl could be on mute.
There's an Oregon telephone number.
Cheryl, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
Excellent. Let's see. Going to the document for a second. And I'm sorry. In terms of making these changes, I understand what Victor was saying about being able to make minor tweaks but not major revisions. I would assume that somebody in the clerk's office and the operations group, either John C. or Nav or somebody, can make slightly bigger changes to the website, and maybe having either another document that evolves from what you have tonight and a beta version of the website, and either that or some screenshots where you could say, here's what it currently looks like, here's what we're proposing, and where stuff would move to, and blah, 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 so that you can sort of test it out over the next couple of months before you actually roll this out. That's a bit of what I'm thinking. Let me just go to the document itself. I also think it's useful to both see how other departments, and agencies, boards, and commissions have structured their websites in the city and how you would model that. So the things that are fairly intuitive, like having an About Us section, and within the About Us section that you would have, how to reach us and yada yada, the bylaws and record retention, all that. So maybe the About the task force, maybe you just continue to call that About Us and make that sort of the top right thing in the main nav bar. Whatever. There are different ways to structure that stuff. And yes, I do think that it's important to identify, at least internally, which stuff is more static, like you're not going to change it for 10 years or you're only going to update it when the bylaws get updated, versus the stuff that's more dynamic. So as orders of determination are issued, that one of the steps in issuing an order is posting it on the website. Same thing like the meeting information. When a meeting is noticed, then it gets posted. When an audio archive is available, then it gets posted, right? It's part of the work. There are things like the annual reports and the orders, the policies and procedures. I agree that having either a called out section or some highlight on the homepage about how to participate. I don't even know if that's the right term for it. We should sort of think about that. Maybe it's how to something. So it's how to get records, how to access meetings, how to find out more about the laws that are implicated here, how to file a complaint, how to participate in task force meetings. Those are all important, but they're all sort of different things that suggest different types of information and education. And similarly, how can either how can or what can departments do to better comply? And so maybe having like a little EOT corner there for what you think best practices are for departments, whether it's in the meeting context or in the records context, to make things be better without having to hold a hearing and send letters back and forth and blah, blah, blah. Just like what you think are best practices that the task force can agree on as a document, and then just post it, send it around to departments. And when someone says, oh, I just joined the city, how do I blah, blah, blah? You say, oh, here's a good place to start. The task force, has a thing that might be helpful. Things like that. I could go on, but I sense that I've exceeded my 3 minutes, and I want to be careful about that. If there are questions or things that I can, I don't claim to, I know a few things about this stuff, but I don't think I have the monopoly on truth here. I'm certainly not the expert on accessibility and disability access and what stuff might be appropriate for translation or whatnot. I tend to be more of a fan of PDFs that one can print out just as, and fully accessible PDFs, all of that, just as I'm used to going to a department or a counter and saying, I'm looking for that 4-page document. Can I just have a copy of it? Getting a PDF that you can print out sort of accomplishes that. If some of that content is also appropriate to be in HTML that can be translated and accessible and whatnot, I have no objection to that. But I think the documents that are documents lend themselves more so to being a PDF. And not all of that is true. And, I don't need like lengthy PDFs on how to contact Cheryl or Victor. And oh, by the way, I think you had something in there on contact information, like who the city attorney is. I would not direct people to contact the city attorney unless it's for purpose of supervisor of records. I think that any contact to the task force or task force members should be to Cheryl or Victor, or frankly should go to SOTF at SF.gov and then let Cheryl or Victor or their successors disseminate it to all of you. You don't want people going around you to David or Mark or whoever. That's not my view, a good idea. All right. Anyway, why don't I shut up at that unless you've got questions or want to interact with me. I'm right here if you need me.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your comments and input. Members, anything to add?
Hey, this is Victor. I just want to let you know that our presenter for our previous item has just shown up.
Okay, great. I think we're good. We're almost pretty much wrapping up this item at this point. Member Hill, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll just in response to Mr. Pilpel, thank you so much for for taking the time to look through this. The time that you spend on that does not go unnoticed, and it is very important that we get that perspective from yourself and from the public. So I really appreciate that, and I will just mention that the I did not, I cannot unfortunately take claim for conjuring up this out of my head. I did look at in building what I really, again, I focused on the homepage. I took the time to look through all of the, I would say the major, more popular commission websites in the city county of San Francisco, and tried to did that research and then kind of created sort of a best of from that. So what you see there is a result of that, but I appreciate the fact that you find that be an important part of what we do. I do really like the idea, and I'm taking some notes here about some education for the departments as well. I think we covered it pretty well from the public's perspective, but that to me, as you were making comments, I was searching through the documents, everything, and that was like the big thing that I felt like was left out. So I think that is something that in order to serve ourselves and also to serve the public and to serve those departments, that we do something of that as well. So I'll definitely take note of that. I'll just mention that one thing that I do know a little something about, and I've noticed that again, I'm just going to focus really quickly on the fact that like we've got currently just a lot of different ways, and they're honestly just confusing around like how you get to an agenda for, like, number one, like how do you get to the schedule of our upcoming meetings? Number two, how do you get to the agendas of those meetings? Number three, how do you get to the minutes of those meetings? And then number four, how do you get to the archive, audio, in our case, audio archive of that. And that's one of the things I was particularly wanted us to pay attention to, and just making sure that like it's just not like right now it's like all over the board. And if you look at one page where it talks about meeting information, it kind of has things sort of listed disjointedly, and then we've got like these 4 menu options. So I definitely think we need to find out who we can work with to get control over those like top level menu items, because I think that is part of what creates confusion for our site. And one other thing that I'll just mention, because we've been talking about accessibility, one of the things that I'm hoping that we pay attention to is like accessibility on our or just being able to access the website via mobile devices. A lot of times those the 508 compliance and mobile device compliance kind of merge together, right? And if you can make it mobile, and or you look at it the other perspective, you make it a 508 compliant or ADA compliant, it will solve a lot of those mobile problems that we're currently experiencing as well. And I will bring up the archive pages that are iframed or whatever into those is extremely not accessible, and I just because I know a little bit of something about those Granicus pages, I know that we can work with them to not implement it the way that it's been implemented on our site. So we might want to add to that list of like folks that we want to reach out to. Who is our contact? Who is the city's contact for for the Granicus view page implementations to make sure that we have some consistency there, because I think that's actually one of the more confusing parts of the site. Is like it's probably been a while since someone has taken a look at those Granicus view pages that say to hear audio you will need Microsoft Silverlight to do that, which I don't think is the case anymore. I'm not even sure Silverlight is even around anymore. And so to me that just means that like it's probably been I don't know, 8 years since that page has been updated. And I think
it's gone the way of Flash, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like Flash just went out like the end of last year or something, or even the year before. It was like, into 2020, and I think Silverlight may have even was, before that as well. It's very outdated technology, and as it turns out, you don't even need those. So the system requirements that are even listed are incorrect, and the only way that we're going to solve that is actually through changes that are being made into pages that we don't even host. They're hosted by Granicus. And so I just really hope that we can consolidate that, because I do believe that if we solve that problem and just eliminate all the different places where you can get an upcoming, the upcoming meeting schedule, well, a single place you can get to the agendas, a single place you can get to the minutes, a single place that you can get to the archives. That will actually simplify things, I think, quite a bit, just from access to our, to the work that we do here in our meetings.
So I have 2 items, and then our guest for item number 2 wants to chime in on this too. One is with regards to the Granicus archives, is if they're still publicly available, they're still publicly scrapable. We could probably scrape the content or ask them for the content for them to scrape it for us, so we don't lose the actual content that was created, and then we can reorganize it or reformat it if it's usable for the update here. The other thing I want to mention is lots of times in website development, the first question you have to ask your client or what you're doing for your own website is, who is your audience? And how are you going to serve? I mean, we call it a server for a reason. How is your server going to serve that information to your audience? So if your audience is primarily people with disabilities, then you have a specific kind of focus. I think Mr. Pilpel kind of elucidated an interesting way that he likes to access information off of a website, and that would be more in the form of a PDF type of downloadable file, like almost a hard copy in an electronic format type of way for certain things, and I think for ADA, it's not just that it's readable, like there's adjustability for the font size or maybe the type of fonts or what have you, but there's a lot of assistive technology out there for every disability imaginable. And, that's part of how that the website is almost generic enough in its coding so that those assistive technologies, the way they're designed, are able to pick up just the core text that is needed, either to, verbalize it in speech or translate it into a Braille reader or what have you, that kind of thing. So, those are things that much more higher level, a little, outside of my pay grade, kind of, and expertise, though that's, a lot of what I primarily focus on. There are people I would call in that are far more expert at it than I am. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, our presenter for next request, but you wanted to chime in on this. Feel free. I'm not holding time right now for this item, so feel free to jump in. And if you could unmute him, Victor, appreciate it. Thank you. Or them.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, great. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I actually sat through your entire meeting 1 or 2 meetings ago and was smashing the *3 button to unmute myself. So glad I'm able to get on. So I saw on the agenda, it just seemed like a general discussion about next request. I can also just introduce myself and give a little bit of background, but you know, happy to answer any questions. I also, it sounds like accessibility is a big issue, and I think that's great. I'm happy to talk about that a little bit as well, if that's of interest.
Okay, so
task force.
Let me interrupt you for a second. So what we did was we basically kind of delayed the item until you arrived, and we moved on to our next item, which is our website refresh. We're calling our information architectural proposal, which is basically just our navigation and building out of our current website. So if you don't have any if you don't have any comments to add on that part, you know, we certainly can talk more about disability access on the next request item. But let me just close out this item first, and then we'll bring back the other item. So I appreciate your standing by for a moment.
No problem.
Okay, Member Hill or Member Wong, is there anything else to discuss at this time? Shall we move this proposal forward to the task force, at least to recommend approval on concept and as a work in progress? That way we can continue the work and start engaging folks to kind of prepare for you know, development. If we can get that rolling sooner than later, so we don't have to keep waiting every 30 days to approve something. I'd like to you know, get that rolling. And then we can, you know, make adjustments along the way, you know, as need be. What do you think?
I'm very happy to take the original documentation that we have and incorporate the suggestions that we've just discussed and organize it in a way that will be consumable for the full task force and the public as well. And I'm happy to take lead on that and work with Member Wong and yourself to do that and also to include kind of like a hierarchy of. I took some notes here about who's going to be responsible for what, so that we have that information going forward as well.
Okay, great. So if somebody would like to make a motion to make a recommendation moving this forward to the August task force meeting, that'd be great.
I will make a motion to take this recommendation with the suggested changes and move it to the full to the discussion of the full task force.
All right, so let me kind of wordsmith it a little bit for you, because I want to be able to see if we can get a decision out of the task force in August so that we can just start working. Because we put a recommendation forward, they may say, okay, looks great, we approve it, and then there's no charge to do anything thereafter. So I'd like to suggest that we recommend the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Information Architecture Proposal with the changes discussed today to be presented for approval by the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, and to approve, in addition to approve the start of work to be done, which would include identifying the webmaster, identifying disability access consultation, and any other departments or agencies that would help in the facilitation of getting our website updated and refreshed.
Can I make one suggestion? I think I've feel a little reluctant to add the disability access consultation piece only because I think it should be on the city, specifically like digital services, and I think the IT department to already be doing that. So I think we should note it, but I don't know that it should fall on us as a task force.
I think it's more about just having access to them. If sometimes, like the webmaster may or may not, or the web mistress, web person, developer person, may not engage them for every single thing. And if we have a certain experience with people that engage with us that they normally wouldn't necessarily include, then we would want to have the ability to have access or to access, at least that department. I'm just trying to leave it open-ended so we can access whoever we need to in order to make this happen. I'm not trying to be too specific, but disability is a kind of central for government services now. So I was trying to be just general and comprehensive about it. That's all.
And maybe what I can do in the proposal itself, and maybe just like the heading or provide a summary that can be a part of that. That we make sure that everyone knows, the public knows, and that the folks that we're going to be working with knows that we will be paying attention to, prioritizing the testing of any changes that we make to adhere as much as we are able to accessibility standards.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just make sure to include that as a part of the language.
Yeah, there's a number of people, a number of organizations in the city also that we can get in touch with. Lighthouse for the Blind. There's a whole consortium around the new Disability Cultural and Arts Center that was part of the Mayor's Office on Disability and Disability and Adult Services Department. There's all kinds of interfacing that we can do with folks to make sure that in the end it's accessible.
So,
am I still muted?
No, you are not.
I'm not super steeped in San Francisco internal IT development, but I actually do know Sid Harrell, who's the lead for digital services. She
Yes.
was at Code for America when I was there. And it just looking over, it's really awesome that the city is updating their website, consolidating, standardizing everything. But it does seem like the city has passed the digital accessibility and inclusion standard at the end of last year. So they have a mandate to make sure that this happens for all of their web content. So as long as your website or your portion of the website falls within that standard, it seems like they will make all necessary efforts to make sure that that happens. And certainly it would, I think, be helpful for you all to work with whatever agencies are working with you on that front to make sure that that happens. But it seems like that's a huge part of their work around updating the city's web properties.
Yeah, thank you for that. We did discuss that before you arrived at the meeting, and we will be engaging with them. Sometimes we have very specific number of kind of regular folks that we work with that require specific, kind of access that the city doesn't normally include, and so we want to
Gotcha.
have the ability to expand on that with folks. So that's
Yes.
what that discussion was about. Okay, in the essence of time, if there isn't anything else, Cheryl, do you have that language for the for the motion, and we can certainly wordsmith it more, as long as we don't change it substantively for the task force. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. What I don't have is a second.
Member Wong seconded it.
Okay, Jen. Okay, moved by Chair Wolf, seconded by Member Wong to recommend.
It was moved by Member Hill, second by Member Wong.
Okay, but you made adjustments.
I just made some adjustments to the motion.
All right. Moved by Member Hill, seconded by Member Wong to take this recommendation with suggested changes for full discussion and recommend that the task force have the information architecture proposal to be presented to the task force, in addition to approve the start of the work to be done, which would include identifying the webmaster disability access consultation and any other departments or agencies that would help with the facilitation of getting our website updated and refreshed.
Perfect. Okay, anything else, folks? Are we ready for a vote? Okay, please call roll.
Okay.
Could I make a brief public comment on the motion?
Sure.
Okay, so David Pilpel again. On the motion specifically, I would suggest that you think about recasting it as not having a full discussion at the task force, because I can see this going on for half an hour, an hour at the full task force times everybody involved, and I'm not sure that you get what you want out of that, other than the buy-in that I think is already there. I would suggest that you just pass a motion tonight that just expresses the committee's intent to update the website along the lines that you talked about, with further work to be done, blah, 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 and just report that out to the full task force, that the committee is taking the bull by the horns and going to work up some stuff. And when you've got something that's ready to present to the full task force, that you'll bring it back to them. And if other members of the task force to the public have thoughts, they should show up at an IT meeting or communicate that in writing or by email to sotf@sfgov. And you're happy to hear from people. And that's it. Just report it out and don't ask that, it's like, don't ask, just tell them. And they'll be like, great, I'm glad the three of you are doing it. Next, there, you just saved a half an hour, an hour. That's my thought. And the other thing, I would do another iteration of the what do you call it? Not the flow chart. What is it? The outline. I would consider how much mobile use there is of the website, because I'm told that now like 90% of website use is mobile and 10% or less are pinheads like me on desktop or laptop devices. So that changes how you present and size and whatnot things. I would have Victor or Cheryl start with Wilson or John C. in the clerk's office before you get to DT or the digital services folks, and figure out sort of who's your best person to start with on that. And just as I look through the big categories, I think you could reduce by at least one or two. I think the big categories that I'm now thinking about are home, about the task force meetings, task force documents, how to engage, other resources, and then board of supervisors. And I'm happy to communicate that with Cheryl offline, and I'm happy to help or work more directly with Member Wong or Member Hill, whatever you want to do. But I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
And I hope I can just save all of us a half an hour, an hour at the full task force. Please, please, please.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I would, Cheryl, if you don't mind, if you could remove the full discussion part, so that wasn't part of the motion that I was suggesting.
Full discussion, okay.
Okay, well, if I
Yes.
may, let me know if I'm on base with this or not. I was just trying to write some things down and keep it super concise, but I had written down move to approve the information architecture proposal with suggested changes for approval by the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force to begin website updates.
Are you suggesting making changes to your motion?
I'm having a discussion with the other members to see if something more concise like that would get us to where we needed to go, and or if I left something out that needed to be there. I'm just trying to make it a bit more concise.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It just the thrust of it is I would like to have the task force approve our committee to actually begin to do the work. I think, this work.
That's correct.
Because it's one thing to say we need this. It's another thing to say go ahead and implement it. So I want to assure that we can get started on this and get approval from the task force. Things get pretty sticky if we don't do that. So.
Right. So if I may, like withdraw the motion, and I would
reiterate.
Restate
the motion.
I'll withdraw that motion. I'll restate the motion. I'd like to move to approve the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Information Architecture Proposal with suggested changes for approval by the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force to begin website updates. That being the key part.
To just that one sentence, Member Hill?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, move to approve SOT, this task force information architectural proposal for approval of the SOTF to begin updates.
I think it was
With
proposal
changes.
with suggested changes.
There you go. So we just want to make sure that we let the folks know that because we have this proposal that's out there, we're going to be making some changes to it, and then we're going to take that and present that. So it's moved to approve the information architectural proposal with suggested changes for approval by the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force to begin website updates.
Got it. And Jennifer, you still the second?
Please.
Okay, do we want to take public comment on this?
Yes, go ahead. Any public comment?
I'm good. I'm fine. Just do it. Next item.
Okay, are we ready for a vote? Let's call the roll. Go ahead.
Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Chair Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. Moved by Member Hill, seconded by Member Wong to approve the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Information Architectural Proposal with suggested changes for approval of the task force to begin updates. Is that correct? Member Hill? Okay, good.
Okay, we're going to go back to item number 3, next request, and I'll have our guest from next request introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Hey, am I still unmuted?
No, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Reed Ducey Gibbs. I'm one of the co-founders of Next Request. And I think Cheryl and a couple other people reached out wanting to chat about the tool and how they can work with the city to better utilize it. And also, I'm happy to just give my, expertise because I've worked with a lot of cities on how to improve their public records request process as well. Definitely, having come from Code for America, I understand technology is very helpful, but it's also not the only thing. And oftentimes business process, problems and people problems are just as important as technology, or they won't, technology won't solve all your problems. So I'm also happy to just talk about what I've seen best practices across our many customers.
Great, thank you. A couple of quick questions to start. One is, I recently learned that NextRequest was acquired by Granicus. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
Okay.
It was acquired by Civic Plus, which is a, well, they have a number of products now, but they primarily actually make websites for local governments. But we are part of a family of compliance products. So actually we have a product for scanning websites and ensuring ADA compliance and remediation. We also have a tool for archiving social media accounts and monitoring compliance around that for blocking and First Amendment rights. So we're sort of part of a broader family of government technology tools.
Okay, I apologize. It's one of your competitors, actually.
Yeah.
Got recently.
Yeah.
And it will remain unnamed. Okay. But,
yeah.
So I appreciate that. Also, as you know, we have a robust sunshine ordinance, which is different than most California cities and counties. You know, which has a lot of additional requirements and enhancements from the California Public Records Act. How have you, seen this either change the way your product is implemented here?
I wouldn't say I've seen a tremendous amount of changes in terms of the additional layer of local law from the Sunshine Law. What I have seen is, as with a lot of larger agencies, there is the issue of decentralization. So there's not really one person or department that owns this process across the entire, city, county, et cetera. And so that I think is oftentimes where we, run into two difficulties, where it's sort of like the IT department, is like, yeah, we'll sort of own the technology, but we're not like, managing and administering the business process and coordinating all of that. And we can't, we're not staffed to take on all of that, business process management. But they sort of get, nudged into doing that because they're owning the tool that does that. So I would say that's the biggest issue that I see, at least in terms of how San Francisco manages their public records requests.
So it's more like a uniformity across all departments.
Yeah, and it's sort of uniformity, and if there are complex requests or if there are requests that cut across multiple departments. I mean, the tool itself has sort of, it can be siloed by departments, and you can assign department admins, but then there is a global administrator, and oftentimes what we find is there needs to be a business process owner in addition to the administrator for the software itself. And actually, the city of San Diego had sort of this role. I haven't seen too many other very large agencies that have a decentralized process do that. And I think that was particularly helpful for them, because otherwise it does get a little fragmented. And then if there's any sort of confusion, it sort of falls on the, some combination of the IT department and oftentimes like the legal department, although sometimes that, changes because different departments have, maybe an attorney part-time assigned to them to help with their records requests.
Okay, thank you. Members, any floor's open to you.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure exactly. Mr. DC Gibbs might be able to help with this, but also the other members might also as well. One of the things that to keep going down that line of like decentralization and the myriad of ways that the public can enter into our system. I'm just wondering if there's some history or color or something like that that I could understand a little bit more. I find that I find that actually really difficult. I think one of the things I think that we're trying to that folks try to balance is like, how do we give folks as many avenues possible for folks to be able to to email or fax or use a form or a Google form. It seems like every department has kind of a different way to do it. Some folks have like gone into sort of bought into Next requests and maybe even other tools in the city. But I'm just wondering if there's if there is some precedent or history behind why that is. Like I guess to simplify the question, why isn't everybody using a single platform across the city, or is that just politics, or yeah. You're shaking your head, but like I gotta ask the question. I gotta ask the question.
It's called.
I will say I don't think all of the departments in the city are using Next Request.
No, I know that for sure.
Yeah, and it's been like quite a lot of work. I mean, like we've probably put more work into onboarding departments one by one than almost any customer we have. We still haven't onboarded all of them. And I think that's just sort of an outgrowth of how the city and county of San Francisco operates, where there is not a sort of either the sort of like just practice or organizational structure where it works to mandate, hey, we're going to all use this system. And so that's just sort of how it is. I think it would be beneficial for the public and for agencies if there was a standardized, system that they were using. And, I do think it is really important to meet people where they are. And, if people send in stuff through the mail or, through emails, et cetera, that you communicate with them that way. And that's sort of the law as well. But in terms of having a standardized system, at least on the back end, and for everybody that wants to, use a modern web application where, they can go look at stuff online, they can get, automated email notifications, et cetera, and want to use that, they have that available to them, and, they know exactly where to go to get that. But again, there's a lot of sort of political capital that needs to be spent. I think especially for departments that don't get a tremendous amount of record requests, they're sort of like, this is sort of like, in the middle of my priorities, and there are like way more things that are, on fire. And so we're going to tackle those unless somebody, really like pushes us to adopt this thing, so that there's a standardized way for the public to get public records information.
Sure. And I would love to hear from Chair Wolf, because you probably have some perspective on this as well.
Well, I can't tell you how many meetings I've sat in for the Committee on IT, which is all the department heads and IT officers from every department, because we do have a decentralized system in San Francisco for the most part. You have the whole executive branch, and then you have all these what they call enterprise agencies. They're kind of like government nonprofit agencies. So you have the Port Public Utilities Commission, the MTA, the airport, the Department of the Environment, HSA. They're all independent. They get they're self-funded more or less, and they have their own board of directors. So, and the city has, all the city can do is pass law that they have to follow, but they don't have no real influence, or supposed to not have influence over their decision making. So they can make their own decision. And the police department, then you get in the executive branch, and then there's more decentralization, where every department has its own IT. They have their own IT departments, and then they make their own decisions. They get their own budgets. So, when you start talking about, we can have a longer conversation about that with regards to, wasteful spending in the city, of duplication and redundancy.
For me, it becomes more. It becomes like again. I start from the perspective of Granicus, because because I was head of products and head of sales and marketing at Granicus for almost a decade, and I saw what they did with agendas, meetings, and videos, and that feels really pervasive. It feels very. If you want to get your meetings online, if you want to do your agenda minutes, no matter if it's the police commission or if you're your airport commission, I feel like that the city has actually done a good job of having a consistent platform that folks can access. Whether and this is not not necessarily the vendor, just the aspect of being able to do that successfully. And I think that, and that's really why I asked the question, because I just didn't know if it was coming from something else. I think in the short time that I've been here, I feel like that unfortunately the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force kind of gets the squeeze on that, because there's so many different ways that folks can enter into the system, and then there's so many different ways that we have to report that and unfortunately it puts then the clerks and other folks have to bear the weight of all of these I'm using Adobe to do a search for for something. It seems a bit archaic for the city and county of San Francisco, which is technology center of the world, so to speak. To me it would like when we see these complaints coming in, and and our organization and our task force is not able to keep up with them because there's so much coming in, more so that we can handle. To me, it seems like that's a symptom of a bigger problem, which is that we have a lack of consistency in not only how the public can get access or can make these requests, but also how the departments respond to them. I know that there's not just think about text messages and our inability to really just get a consistent read on just one form of media that the city and county should be responsible for. It sounds like to me though that it's not really about the rules or the laws or the regulations or the policies, but rather more of just getting the buy-in. If I'm hearing that correctly, I don't know if Member Wong.
Yeah, I mean, and we work with I don't know how many cities in different states, but each state has, they're reasonably similar, but they all have their different nuances about when things need to be responded to, how they need to be responded to. So the software is set up to be configured to handle, 50 different versions of public records acts. And we work with, cities and counties and universities in lots of different states all over the country. And again, what we find is, like, when we onboard new agencies, what we do is we sit down with them, we map out their current business process, what tools they currently use, and then how they want to use the application, and if they want to just continue with their same business process, or they want to work with us to modify their business process. But the application can handle both centralized and decentralized processes. It can, if agencies want to just use it as a back office tool, not publish any requests, not publish any, documents in the reading room, they can use that as well. That's a prerogative. Obviously, I don't think that's, a good democratic practice, and honestly is probably not efficient, because they lose some of the efficiency of making things accessible online and then not having to respond to things that are commonly requested. But yeah, I mean, I think there is because it is about sort of workflow and process, there is a fairly large business process component to setting up the application and using it effectively.
Okay, great. Thank you. Member Wong, do you have any thoughts or questions?
I think my main question is just like, is there a good strategy for us and probably our education and training committee to help in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I do think obviously getting more departments on, so that when a member of the public goes to make a request, they have an access to all of it, instead of a drop-down menu of 15 departments and then an asterisk of these other tens of departments are going to have to go somewhere else, who knows where, somewhere. I would say also, do you all get reports from the departments that are using the application?
No.
I mean, I think that would be just an easy way to sort of keep people on task, but also, I am having seen the inside of how thinly agencies are stretched, and oftentimes, public records requests aren't the main job of any department. It's sort of like a thing they have to do on top of their regular job, which can be really, really hard. So I think, getting reporting from them, but like trying to work with them in a collaborative way to like understand, how they can improve their processes over time, so that they can make sure that they're, fulfilling the requests, identifying, commonly requested items, and being like, hey, can we publish them on our, shiny new website, or put them in an open data portal, or, there are lots of tools that can route people to information that's already online before they make a request in the application. So I think, there are things like that, and it sort of starts with just keeping tabs of, okay, how many requests, are these departments getting, and are they keeping on top of them? And if not, why not? Then you can, ask the follow-up questions, which is like, why not? And it might be like, well, we got bombarded with all of these requests for emails, and now we have to review them and redact all of them. We just don't have staff for all of that, and so that can then be a larger question that you talk about like how do you interact with the public on this front when it's like an overwhelming amount of review work, or what are standard practices that you can take to reduce that workload, reminding people that are responding to adjust the scope of their requests, et cetera.
I can respond to some of those items. It's every city staffer, we call them custodians. Everybody is individually a custodian of record. That's what makes our Sunshine Ordinance unique in its enhancement over the California Public Records Act, which only requires that a request can be made of an agency or a department. In San Francisco, you can make that request of an individual person. Now, over the years, as things started getting much more busier, and especially through the pandemic, because people were asked to serve in an emergency situation and they weren't at their regular desks to do their regular jobs, there's been a kind of a migration towards using a gateway model, which is the public information officer. So all requests generally, if somebody receives one, their order is to transmit it to the public information officer. And the public information officer would, kind of perform the function and contact the appropriate people in order to fulfill the request. It doesn't mean that the request can't be made of the person directly, and it's their general responsibility to respond to it. If there's a complaint that comes to us, then the person can have a representative represent themselves and not themselves personally. That said, one of the things that we've heard some difficulties with is that members of the public will make a request, and then it'll go up on next request, and it just sits there. Nobody touches it or contacts it. People don't know that they should be monitoring it. So notifications that something has come in for them has been reported to us through complaints. The other point here is accessing attachments like actual files. People have had difficulties in downloading or finding them, I think, or just being able to understand how to access them. And I don't know whether that's a function of the user interface or maybe just tech savviness. I don't know whether it's a user friendliness model. I have no idea. I'll stop there. I have a couple other points I want to make too, but I'll let you roll with those first.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the when requests come in and they aren't responded to, that's sort of a business process question again. Like the technology is not going to respond to the request for you.
Right.
So if nobody's sort of monitoring it, there's no business process, or the person that was supposed to be responding to it has left and nobody reassigned it and added them as set up a user account or forwarded their emails or whatever. Like it's not gonna, the tool's not gonna solve that. In terms of the access of the documents, I guess I would need to know, the specifics of what those issues are. Again, the tool allows you to or it gives the public or the government employees the ability to publish or not publish documents publicly online at their discretion, because sometimes there are things that, you know, are sensitive in nature, or, you know, the tool is often used to respond to records requests for non-public information, you know, so it can be used to release like EMS records, like we have agencies that sign BAAs with us and use it for HIPAA records. You know, so like we leave some discretion up to the agency. And so if they just decide to release it directly to the requester, and the requester saying, well, I wanted to go see it on the, you know, the public reading room accessible to the whole entire internet, and I don't see it there, and I'm very frustrated. Why can't I see it there? You know, it's because they decided to release it just to that requester, and in order to access it, they need to, you know, provide their credentials to log in and get access to that. So, you know, I don't know, like, there's not like an easy way around those sorts of issues. You know, if there are, I mean, I guess I would just need to know like what the specific issues are to work through those.
Okay, I'll be happy to get those. A couple other things is in our universe, the public can make requests in any number of ways. They can make it verbally, they can make it in writing, and they can use, you know, like the next request type of system. But when they don't use the next request system, even though it's available, and they are still able to make a request verbally or in writing, they can send it in by email or by fax or hand deliver it or what have you. We find that staffers will then automatically, they will submit a next request kind of ticket, and they will try to force that person to use the system. This may not necessarily have anything to do with you per se, but we do find that to be problematic. I just want to state that for the purpose of the subject matter for today, whether or not you have a response to that. It has come across our in several complaints over the years. So, you know, it's in that sense there, you know, for at least us, we need to, you know, assure that folks can maintain the type of communications that they need. It could be for a disability issue. It could be for a legal issue. Maybe they don't need you know, to connect with the next request, or maybe they just don't have computer access. So it makes it a little bit difficult if that's the way the city is going to kind of force them to have contact with them for their request, and they don't have access to the internet. You know, that becomes an issue in and of itself. I don't know if you have any comment on that. That's kind of an internal process issue, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's reasonable, and like there are laws in place that, you know, require records requests to be accepted in, you know, lots of different formats for a reason. I think sort of getting back to what I was saying earlier, there are a lot of agencies that, or I wouldn't say a lot, but there are some agencies that decide they just want to use the software as a, you know, a back office workflow tool. And so, you know, they have a PDF form on their website and they say, fill this out and, you know, mail it back to us. And then they get it and input it into the system. I think they do that to make there be a little bit more friction on the request process, which I don't always agree with. But, what I would recommend in you all's case is working on training with staff that do accept and process records requests, and make them aware of the ways that records requests can be submitted, or like any format that's valid, and how they can then take those and input them into next request in order for them to process and manage the workflow of fulfilling that request internally, even if the output is, I'm going to print this stuff out and mail it back to this person, or, burn it to a CD and they're going to come pick it up, or however they want it back. They can still utilize, the internal processing and coordination tools, which will still save them a lot of time, even if, the requester is like, I just want to send everything by certified mail. Like, okay. Sorry.
And I have two last points. One is there's been some concern about staff closing requests that are not left publicly accessible. Is that just a settings adjustment on the platform, or is that the way the platform works?
Closing requests that aren't publicly accessible.
Yeah,
like
so
they they have a request that isn't published online, and then they close it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So the request, generally the request may or may not be publicly accessible, depending upon how. And I'm not sure how the platform works with regards to its configuration. So there have been some complaints saying that their request was closed, and then they didn't ask for it to be closed. They felt that it was still open, but it allowed some sort of gatekeeping to prevent any additional access on their request, and they felt that their request hadn't been fully complied with. So then it's either not accessible to the original requester.
Gotcha.
Or once let's say the request is completed and everybody's satisfied, and it's somehow the request is closed and then not accessible, to the general public or anybody else. Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, a couple threads there and a couple of different sort of features that touch on that. So one, we give the government employees discretion about what they decide to publish entirely on the internet. So there are like sort of two levels of requests, or I guess three levels. One is completely published, like on the internet generally, like literally anybody could go see it anywhere in the world, the request, and any public correspondence and any redacted and reviewed and published documents. So that's one level, but they don't need to do all of, they can choose which requests they want to do that with. And again, this is, there's a difference between publishing everything on the internet and responding to an individual record request. So we sort of just leave that up to the government to decide. There are some agents, you can't configure the application to make it required that you publish literally every request and every document. But that's like a all or nothing sort of proposition. And I would guess it would be very hard to convince every department that they want to publish every last request and every document including the ones that are potentially, have, they're responding to some EMS record for a insurance claim or something like that.
But there are laws covering that. I mean, we have a very strong redaction law. We start our complaint process with all documents are public documents, and unless the respondent or the custodian can provide some citation that it should either be the information in the document should be withheld or the entire document should be exempt, they would have to cite some law. Otherwise,
it's not about whether they did or didn't respond to the request. It's about whether they did or didn't publish it on the internet, and it just happens to be on the next request portal. It would be sort of like saying, well, why didn't you, all emails in the city are public record. Why aren't they published on the website right now?
Oh, no. But what I'm saying is for the next request, for that particular request, all the documents that were released to the requester, the idea is to have that whole experience, that whole thread of that request to be publicly available and searchable.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the decision of the agency.
Okay.
So if you want to say, like, there's a difference between responding to an individual request and saying, like, I'm interacting with this one requester one-to-one on this request. I released them documents. They accessed the documents. They downloaded the documents. But I decided I did not want to publish this on the broader internet for everybody everywhere to see. That's sort of like a business process decision, and I will leave it up to you all. I mean, I personally think that's cool, and I think that they should, publish, basically everything online unless, there's privacy implications, which are legitimate. But that's sort of a internal politics business process thing, and we sell software, and it's up to you all to decide how you want to use it.
Okay.
So yeah, you can certainly publish all of them if you want, and as I mentioned before, there are agencies that decide to publish nothing. They just use it as an internal workflow tool. They fulfill the request. They send the documents to the requester. There's no public reading room. There's no log of previous requests that people can research and, use to their benefit. But yeah, I think that the short answer is that's sort of a business process, internal political decision.
Okay. All right. In the essence of time, Jen, do you have anything else you want to add here? Questions?
Yeah, just a couple more questions. I was just kind of curious how much the platform allows for some of that public education as well. Like, I think, for example, when I take a look at, making a request on the San Francisco Next Request website, there's information about the participating departments, but, no links back to those departments. There isn't really much detail on how you would, make a request or recommendations for that extra information. And then also, when doing a search across all documents, it looks like it's only searchable by file name. So I was just curious if there are, more features that could be enabled that maybe the, San Francisco is not taking advantage of, or if there are things that are being worked on, could be added, just to help give a little more guidance to people making requests.
Yes. So on the first one, and I'm just looking, it looks like you all, or I should say you all, the city county hasn't set up an FAQ. So that is a feature that isn't being utilized. So you can set up an FAQ on the portal itself that could, provide a lot of those, like how to submit a request, basic information, background on California Public Records Act and San Francisco Sunshine. You can also adjust the request page itself. So there's a list of participating documents, but there's also some additional information there. You can update that. You can provide links to, other web properties. So if you wanted something that, that just sort of lived on the city's website, for example, that just had an overview of public records requests, you could have it there as well. And then in terms of searching documents, that's actually something that we're working on is you can, within a document, search across it, but across multiple documents. That's something we've actually started working on recently. So that will probably, sometime, I would guess, in the next year or so, be available.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so let's open it up for a little public comment. There's no action that I don't think we're going to take here today. Doesn't seem like anything's emerging, but let's open up for public comment, as is our requirement. If there's any members of the public. Hey, please wait for. I would wait. I would appreciate not trying to elicit a Q&A with the guest. If you have any questions that you have come up, we have some other items on the agenda I want to move forward. But if they're pertinent, then I'll get to ask them. Thank you.
Let me know when you're ready.
Bruce, you don't want this time, do you?
No, it's fine. You don't have to have it timed.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Pilpel.
Okay. I have no Qs. I have no As. But if Member Wong is not with you, then I don't think you have a quorum, and you may need to recess for a moment.
Yeah, she's stepped away. Okay.
While she's doing that, if I could just suggest, I saw Cheryl typing furiously. Perhaps this is an opportunity tonight to have shorter minutes and just have like a very brief, the representative from Next Request describe the system and discuss issues related to it, and members discussed, and things like that. So, the more you can shorten the minutes to cover actions and less about the discussion and encourage people to just listen to the full tape if they care, that might help the world, but that's up to you. Hey, look who's back. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, we're back in session. Go ahead.
Okay, so on this item, I tried using Next Request. I think it should be optional as a way to get documents. I've heard from others that it can be complicated to set up an account. I personally don't use email, so I don't know if that would limit my access to the thing. I don't really want to use it. Again, I think it should be another way to get documents as opposed to email or mail or go visit the department. But I don't think that it should be a way to spy on other requesters and see the status of requests that are not your own. I frankly don't want to know what other people are asking for and what the status of their requests are, nor do I want others to know what the heck I'm asking departments for. If departments want to track it internally in a non-public facing way, that's fine. And if requesters set up an account and want to check the status of a request that they've made, that's fine too. But again, I don't want them to see what I'm up to. I don't want to know what they're up to. If someone makes a request for a document, perhaps the system should have a checkbox for, do you want this document to be available to the general public? And if it's not subject to HIPAA or some other privacy concern, if they're just asking for the contract that the city has with fill in the blank entity, and they say, yes, I have no problem making that, a public record, then maybe that could be publicly viewable to anybody who gets into the system and cares. But other than that, I think, again, you ask for a thing. I mean, one of the fundamentals of the Public Records Act and Sunshine is that a member of the public should be able to ask for and be able to view or get a copy of a record. That's it. It doesn't give anybody a right to have that document be broadcast on the internet or available to everybody else or blah, 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 blah. If departments get multiple requests for a document under, I forget which provision right now in Sunshine, they should put it up on their website. If 15 people care about a particular contract or report or something, the department should put it up, and that's, sort of incumbent on the department. If this is a way to do that, that's cool, but ultimately those documents should be migrated to the department's website. I also wanted to conclude by tying this back to the website update that was discussed earlier. In one of those tabs, I think it would be useful, the how to engage or how to get records, to say you can request documents from departments. Here's a list, and have the task force sort of maintain a list of city departments with the public records contact, the main public records contact for each department with their name, either their direct email or the generic email box that they've set up. So, I think MTA, PUC, various big departments have like a more generic MTA public records at mta.com, whatever, right? The general box or a phone number, because in some cases they've got a dedicated phone line just for public records requests, and have another column, is this department using NextRequest, yes or no? And then have a little blurb under that for departments that use NextRequest. You can log into NextRequest at, or sfgov at nextrequest.com, blah, blah, slash Bruce, slash, Cheryl will look shiny tonight, slash, whatever. That can be a tip for people to get into that if they're interested. But again, it's more on the task force and city departments facilitating access to records rather than forcing people into using NextRequest, Chair Wolf, as you suggested, as the only way to get documents. It should be a route, a tool, but not but we shouldn't force people to do that any more than we should say, oh, the only way to get records from this department is if you fax in a request and only, between 3:30 and 4 on alternate Tuesdays. Yeah, okay. That's not the idea. Okay, anyway, I hope that helps. And feel free to just summarize my comments very briefly. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Ducey Gibbs, do you have anything else you'd like to add this time?
I don't think I have anything else at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other public comment? Anybody might have arrived late? Okay, seeing none. Okay, public comment is closed. There's no action on this. Thank you very much for attending. Really appreciate it. We do have your contact information. If there's any other questions that come up along the way or from other task force members, we can have Ms. Leger, we'll send them off to Ms. Leger. She'll contact you directly. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, I really appreciate your time and spending it here with us tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for, I know all of these meetings are a lot of work, but appreciate what you do for the city and just democratic governance in general. Often thankless. So
appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Cheryl, let's call the next item.
Let's see. Item number 5, web conferencing. Task force meetings using WebEx. Review update of AB 361, AB 1944, and AB 2449.
Okay, so the reason why I put this up is because we recently approved some suggested guidelines for the city in using web conferencing, and a lot of that is affected by state law that got passed, starting with AB 361, which will be in effect till 2024. And there have been 2 other bills that I've been aware of. Maybe there are others, I'm not sure, but those are the only ones I could find that also would have some effect. Now, I just want to give an update on 1944 has stalled in committee. I basically, by the author, don't know what the status is going to be on that, whether it's going to be a gut and amend or whether they're going to try to, re-up it. But it was so similar to the other one, which was AB 2449. That one has passed the Assembly floor and is now on the Senate side, and it is now in Senate Appropriations, most likely with all the other bills on suspense, which is kind of the way they do it. And that one's gone through a number of amendments, and some of it pretty much preserves the ability for legislative body members to remain attending meetings remotely, as long as it's not a quorum. That a quorum must be made in a publicly accessible place that the public can access physically. So that is here. Well, actually, let's see. I don't know if this is a newer amendment. This one says, if a member elects to teleconference from a location that is not a public place, including and beginning January 1st, 2024, that at least a quorum of the members of the legislative body participates from a single physical location that is clearly identified on the agenda, open to the public, and situated within the boundaries of the territory over which the location agency has jurisdiction. Now, that got added in later because there was more offensive language in there, in my opinion, that basically would say it didn't have to be within the jurisdiction of the agency, and that they didn't have to tell you where the location was. And so there are still some of that language in there, but it's mostly for the remote users. The concern that I think organizations like FAC and the ACLU and other publishers, media publishers have, is that there could still be less than a quorum meeting all in the same place. And, depending upon whether or not you can see them all or not, like they're all using their own laptops, or whether they're using one camera to see each other, the question then becomes, are they colluding during the meeting? Which would become, it's not necessarily a serial meeting, but it's having like a private meeting within a meeting. And that's not, then you can't, that kind of goes against the Brown Act for being able, the public be able to see the business of government be done public in the public view. So there's been some issues around that, but regarding this kind of really settles the issues around either people with disabilities or people who are differently abled that, like, for instance, if it's a maternity issue and it's really difficult to travel in that kind of way, this helps solve that problem. We have that have had that on the books here in San Francisco only for maternity leave, but not for anything else. So, and the one thing that we do in the task force, it's kind of a quasi in that way, that if you wanted to remain anonymous, you can call in to protect your identity, completely, and so and actually turn off your caller ID so you can't even show your phone number, kind of thing. That sometimes we've done that in the past too. So that was another way for people to do that. So I just wanted to report that. And at the same time, just, kind of if there's anything else that maybe has come up since we've had that, we created those guidelines. And also just wanted to review just some of the things with regards to our new use of WebEx, with regards to the web conferencing. Member Wong, do you have anything you wanted to add on that? No. Okay. So with regards to the WebEx, one of the things that I wanted to, it's kind of supposed to be two separate items, but one was a notice that gets sent to us by email is very confusing, because it starts out with a meeting ID and like an email address for access, and that is usually reserved for using the WebEx app. So it starts out by saying, like, for us that are members, it says panelist password. The event has no panelist password. And then it says video address. And then it gives a meeting ID at ccsf.webex.com. And then it says you can also dial, and it gives a series of numbers that looks like an IP address, and enter your meeting number. But it doesn't say where to dial that. It's not a phone number. It's only 9 digits. And then there's a panelist numeric password. So all that at the top of the notice is, I don't know what that's for. What really matters is what's down below that, where it says to join as panelist. Now, the thing about this is that, and then it says event password, but at the top it says that the panelist doesn't need a password. So it really becomes very confusing. The other thing is that, WebEx has its own meeting platform, its own app. And seemingly what this is not WebEx meetings, but it's WebEx events. It's not even WebEx webinar. And that's what I've come to learn. And that using WebEx events does not work in the WebEx meetings platform. So no matter where you are, you're trying to use the meetings platform, the meetings app, it's just not going to work. This is meant to work specifically through a web browser and through the web browser plugin. So I think that needs to be explained specifically, not just for our use, but also for the general public. It does make it kind of easier to use. You do have to make sure that that plugin gets installed properly, and that the browser that you're using accepts it. I know that on Windows and Macintosh, it seems to be working pretty flawlessly, but on other operating systems like Linux, it does not. And I've been working with the kind of their development team to try and see about getting that working, because Chrome operating system is based on Linux. So if you have a Chromebook, it may not work. It may or may not. And so those are things that they're kind of checking things out. most tablets that people use are on the Android system. And the question is whether the mobile app, works directly with the WebEx events platform versus the WebEx meetings platform. So I just wanted to point that out because it's been confusing for I think some of the task force members in getting online and trying to read this kind of pre-formatted message that comes out. Now I receive it in a Gmail calendar platform, so I don't know if it's specific to that in the way it comes or whether it's not. Okay, so whether using Outlook or some other calendaring system. Okay. All right, the other point I wanted to make on this with regards to the WebEx system was, what was it? I can't remember. I forgot to write it down. All right, so I'll just stop there, and I think we're just going to have to really pay attention to the AB 2449 to see what if the Senate starts to make any additional amendments that might affect the way the Brown Act gets implemented. This particular bill will not be active until January of 2024 when AB 361 sunsets. AB 361 that was meant to run through the state of emergency, and then AB 2449 is supposed to just fully implement the use of web conferencing moving forward, and other technology. So I'll stop there. Member Wong, anything to add beyond that?
I think the one thing is, I will agree, I think the WebEx events was very confusing. I do think the emails are also very confusing. I'm kind of curious because, yeah, when I also receive the emails through Gmail. The where shows a link, and actually it shows to join as an attendee, it's CCSF. So I'm kind of curious if, like, I don't know, I guess it's City and County of San Francisco. So I'm just kind of curious, like, who is running the entire platform, because I know, other departments are using it. And so I'm kind of curious if other departments are using events or if they're using meetings or webinars, because I could have sworn that, for example, attending a police commission meeting, that it was webinar based. But that being said, I do recall joining via browser, so it could be the same as what we're using.
Okay. I don't know if staff has anything to add on this.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. I haven't heard from people that they're having difficulty using the bit.ly, the HTTPS, in their browser. I haven't heard anybody say I can't get in.
Okay.
That's just been my experience. And people with their meeting, I mean, I explained to Mr. Reed tonight, I said it would probably be easiest if he just telephones in. And he did, and Victor saw him.
Okay.
And that seems to be where people have the most success.
Okay.
As far as, I'll just direct back to the bit.ly address, the password never changes. It's always sunshine.
Okay. Yeah, that's a function of how you set up the meeting. I just a question, why are you using the bit.ly address?
I don't know, Victor, do you have a comment on that? Access for two forms of access was my understanding.
It's not something that I've ever questioned. It's just how the board uses it, and that's how they set it up for their meetings. And we just
Do the same.
Since they set it up for us, they just do it for us.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering, it seems unusual that government would use a kind of a more, sake of a better word, a stealth URL than the actual URL for something like this. I know it's smaller, it makes it look smaller, but doesn't necessarily, I don't know. Just I think it's not a pure form of information. It feels like it's a little, hidden.
What would you like us to, I mean, what can I take back to Angela and say?
Well, I think, I mean, I can forward you the invitation that I got. And if anybody is looking at that and they're a panelist, they're going to be confused as to, very confused as to what to do, because there are it shows two ways of accessing the system. And one says, it starts off by saying panel's password. And then it says the event has no panel's password. And then 2 lines down, it says panelist numeric password. And then below that, it says to join as a panelist. And then underneath that, it says event password sunshine. So it doesn't make, it seems like it's lost its formatting in some way. And the way it gets added, I'm reading it from Google Calendar. So if the formatting is getting messed up as it's being added to various, calendars, online calendars that people use, then that needs to be reviewed and fixed because I know that's confused some of the Sunshine Task Force members, and until they figure out, okay, I just need to click this one link and not all the others, then they're able to, finally get it. But I don't know how this is going out to the rest of the public. So,
well, I will say also that there are members of the public who do public comment call in and they press *3 repeatedly. They don't know if they're on, they don't know if they're off. That is an issue that I hear from a number of people, not just like regular attenders like Mr. Warfield.
Yeah, there is. Well, here's the other thing is, I think also because of that, most of the other commission meetings that are using WebEx, they have somebody there that will say, okay, caller, it's your turn, or your line is open now. There's more, staff available at those meetings, but I can't imagine that the system doesn't have some automated prompt or kind of, sound to say, whether you are muted or not. So
all right.
I think there's got to be. I can't imagine the system not having that. And I'm just curious as to whether maybe because using the events platform versus the meetings platform or versus the webinar platform, maybe that there's different configurations for each one. It just helps we're just trying to make our meetings as easy as possible, simple, and accessible as possible. And it's taken us a very long time to get the system implemented. So just want to make sure that it works for everyone.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right. Let's open it up for public comment. Any public comment on this item? Okay, hearing none. Wait a moment. Go ahead.
I'm here, David Philpell.
Yep, go ahead.
So there were several different topics here. I have not followed the 2 state bills, but I appreciate that you are. It seems to me, and maybe one could craft a suggested amendment to send up to one of our, state legislators, that I don't particularly care where people are sitting. I don't feel like if it's a remote meeting, I need to know where you are. I'm not coming over to your house. You're not coming over to mine. I don't need to know your address and vice versa. I don't need to go to a location that's publicly accessible and ADA and all of that. I just want to know that there's a quorum. And so if that requires members to be on camera so as to ensure that there's a quorum, I'm good with that. I like the provision, see, like, there you go. That was very, very clever. I like that the provision in 361 that if there's a technical difficulty, that the body has to recess in order to fix that technical difficulty so that the public can participate. That's cool. I think one could add, for example, a provision that all documents made available to the members shall be made available to the public at the same time on a publicly accessible website, and things like that. I would put in something about use of chat and Q&A, because occasionally I use the chat and Q&A. I think you could provide that whether it's the task force or all bodies across the state, whatever, that the use of chat and Q&A should be allowed, but limited to technical concerns. So we're not, coming up with a new homeless policy over the chat here, whether it's with members of the public or among members of the policy body. But if I can't hear you because some glitchy thing happened with Granicus or WebEx or Teams or whatever, which, as we know, happens all the time, I should be able to put that in the chat, and somebody should look at that and say, hey, maybe we should hold on for a second and see what's going on. And if that's true, then let's recess and fix it. So, there are advantages to the technologies, and if we use those advantages rather than obsess about the other stuff, and I'm not saying that you are, and even with the maternity or pregnancy provisions, that was put into the charter, but that still required the Board of Soups to codify that by ordinance, which I think they still haven't done. So it's sort of there, but not totally. And again, so long as there's a quorum of the body that's listening and acting, I'm good with it. What do I care if you're on, I don't know, Page Street, or if you're in, I don't know, Montana or New York or Texas. Try to avoid Texas. Apparently it's very warm down there. Anyway, apparently it's warm everywhere. Something about global warming. I don't know. Anyway, those are some thoughts. I think it's good to keep this as sort of a standing agenda item, both on the bills and how you're implementing the stuff. But I would also try to broaden it a little bit so it's not just how the task force is dealing with remote meetings, but how other city bodies are. And we could talk another time about the Board of Soups and its committees, and Member Wong referenced the Police Commission, and there are other bodies that have different practices and different experiences with these various things. I'm much more interested, frankly, in the functionality, and I've said this before, the functionality of these things rather than the specific platform. I don't care if I have to log on to WebEx using whatever, or Teams or whatnot, so long as it does the things that I need it to do. That's all. Anyway, I hope that helps. Thanks.
It does. And I hear what you're saying about the agenda, and we'll make sure that it gets clarified for the next meeting. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. There's no action. Member Wong, any last thoughts? Nope. Okay, let's move on to the next item. Ms. Leger.
Yep. Item number 6, order of determination database update.
Okay, so has there been any report from the clerk's office on this at all? Victor or Cheryl? No.
I have not received any additional information on it.
Okay. So last we've heard, there was still some contract issues with Granicus that runs the Legistar application, that they were still trying to get that implemented. I think we're going on something like 5 years of asking for this at this point. And I think we need to try to find something that we can use. Now, we did get some, we did get one of our regular complainants, one of the anonymous complainants, which has been adding orders of determination to a publicly accessible document cloud platform. It does have a search function, but it's a little, it's not hard to use, but it takes a little practice. But it gives, but there's no way to kind of group or tag. It does have the ability to tag, and there are some tagging that's done in it, but it's not tagging that we would normally, possibly use. It's tagging for that person's purpose. So so that, you might want to, that's something that we could possibly continue to use and possibly expand upon. I don't know if any of us have access to be able to add tags to it or not. But it does have all of our orders of determination, and I don't know how far back it goes. I don't know whether it was started in 2021 or 2019. I have no idea. So, but right now there are 488 documents there, orders of determination. So it's quite I would say probably, 5 or 6 years worth. So I don't know what to do at this point, except to maybe, see if there's some agency like Code for America is a great place to go because they start working on projects that are pretty much government based, that, possibly get into. A lot of projects have been implemented through the Code for America process. So I'm wondering if that might be a place that we, should just go to and just start doing it. Go ahead, Member Wong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a potentially a good idea. I don't anything to light the fire, to be able to get people to move on this. I think 5 years, that is so long.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem that I see is for every new iteration of members of the task force that come in, there's no real, you end up having to rely on 1 or 2 people for institutional knowledge. And there's no way other than to read through every single order of determination to see if there's any subject matter that applies to a current complaint. And the hope was that legal counsel, and when they were doing the memos, that they would refer back to, cases, complaints that we had already heard before that were similar. So that way we can actually even streamline our process even more and save a lot more time. And actually we could probably even make express determinations. And if a respondent, objected to it, then they could say, okay, here's a case where you made a determination that was different, or, that kind of thing, have just less, it'd be less of need for engagement in the process, which saves a lot of people time.
Yeah, I think the best thing about it too is that, our orders of determination are available on the website already. And so if we were to approach someone from Code for America, I feel like it would be a small project for 1 or 2 engineers tops.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of searchable, database programs, applications. The thing is that all of ours are in PDFs, so it would have to be, and that's kind of been perfected over the years to search PDFs if they're searchable. Otherwise you have to, for the older ones that were scanned in as images, you'd have to OCR it first. And so that's where the kind of the rubber meets the road for those older ones. But, even for those older ones, that's part of the project to try and convert those into usable and searchable PDFs. You won't be able to retain the metadata because that's gone by now. But but at least be able to search for those things, because the task force, never knows if it's contradicting itself or not, or being redundant, too redundant, and actually we can probably take from motions made in the past and just take that same language, right? It makes things so much easier. And then also for people just to review similar cases that might have nuances, but they'd be able to glean on it, because without the advent of getting any kind of real analysis, folks are kind of at a loss, for fending for themselves, and I don't think that's right for as important an issue as what we're dealing with here. And we had that whole discussion around the Ethics Commission, their investigative department, and they do all that work for the commission. So we didn't get approved for staff, which was that's another interesting discussion we need to have at the task force level. All right, so so I'm wondering if we shouldn't make a recommendation to the task force that we begin the search again for and engage Code for America about development of a database for our orders of determination.
That sounds like a motion to me.
Okay, then I will make that motion to recommend for approval to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force for the IT committee to restart its research on a searchable database for the orders of determination, and including engaging Code for America.
I think there's also Code for San Francisco, actually.
But that is part of the Code for America. They have a San Francisco office.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm referring to.
Cool.
Will you second that? Okay. Thank you.
And Jenna's second will be Jennifer.
Right. Okay. So let's open up this motion for public comment, and there's still only one member of the public here. And would that person like to speak?
Is there code for Haight-Ashbury? I mean, at this point. I just want to be clear on this and hopefully help you guys on it. I think the scope here is very important. There's a lot that you can do with orders of determination and a lot that others might want. I would suggest that if the goal here is to have a searchable database of orders of determination of the task force, that's cool. I would start with those orders that already exist as PDFs or Word documents that can become searchable PDFs, and do something with them so that they're searchable in a whatever the tool is. Then I would figure out those other orders before X date that exist in some electronic form, but not what you want, and then ultimately go back to stuff that's only on paper and figure out how that can be scanned, rescanned, OCR'd, fixed, futzed with, blah, blah, blah. As that process rolls through, you may want to think about whether orders from 1997 really still matter, and whether you just want to say before a certain date, you're not going to go through that effort because, frankly, you're just not. I mean, if someone really cares, I'm sure all of these records exist, or many of them do. But again, I'm not sure what the value of an order from 1997 is. That's section 1. Section 2, bear in mind, and everyone should remember, that the value of an order is limited to that day, that night, that complaint, those facts, whoever was there. Unfortunately, the precedent doesn't seem to matter much in the world these days, let alone with the task force. And even if the task force was presented with the same set of facts and circumstances this month compared to next month, you might vote 6-4 one month on something and 6-4 the other way on the same set of facts with the same actors and whatever, simply because you weren't convinced or two people weren't convinced and one passed and one failed, and there you go. And if that makes certain people in the public unhappy and because it's inconsistent and yada, 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 dems to breaks, right? Isn't that what Boris Johnson said the other day? Dems to breaks? Wasn't that his? Never mind. So, again, the scope is important here, and if it's of value, if someone says, I've got a beef with this agency over this set of facts, and I think this thing was really similar from 2 years ago, and you may want to look to that. Yes, it may be informative, it may be instructive, but it's certainly not dispositive. And I don't think anyone should come in and say, because the task force voted 6 years ago on a similar thing, 8-3 to, pound whatever department on blah, blah, blah. Therefore, this task force this week should similarly vote to find them in contempt of their. Like, no, not necessarily. You still have to do the work to make the showing as to why you think you're right and they're wrong, blah, blah. But anyway, there's that. And then the third bit on all of this is making it not just searchable, but perhaps adding tags. So if you've got a complaint that involves rec park, golf fees, and public records, right? Those might be useful tags as opposed to PUC and meetings and public comment, right? So I would just think of, again, what you want to do, how you want to break it up, and what the value is to members of the task force, to other city actors, departments, city attorney, whoever, to complainants, respondents, to members of the public that may be doing research, whatever, before you expend a whole lot of energy on something for which it's not clear why we're doing it. If it's good, great, do it, cool. But anyway, those are some thoughts. Hope that helps. I'm smiling.
Okay, thank you very much. Good thoughts. Thank you. All right, any other public comment? Hearing none, public comment is closed. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, let's call the roll.
Chair Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Wolf, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Hill, absent. Moved by Chair Wolf, seconded by Member Wong, to move to recommend for approval to the task force for the IT committee to restart its research for a searchable database for its orders of determination, including engaging Code for America.
Thank
Did I
you.
get that, Bruce?
You got it. Thank you. All right, let's call the next item.
Item number 7, Twitter account.
Okay. I don't know what the status is on this. Member Wong, do you?
No, I don't either. I was
I think it's a
hoping,
member Stein a matter.
yeah, I
That's
was
who the
hoping
one
Member Stein would.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just asked to put it on the agenda, so I really don't know. I mean, I know we're looking to find a kind of a platform to make public announcements and notices on. That's a little bit more than our website, or to tell people to go to the website, more or less. But yeah, I don't, yeah, okay. I really don't know the details of this one.
Yeah, I don't
So,
have a status update on it, but I feel like what could be helpful is for us to um, wait to see what the rules committee comes back with regards to shared accounts, like a shared email account across the task force. Well, email accounts for each of us, and then I don't recall what we were talking about at the most recent full task force meeting, but I think that was something that member neighbors was going to start looking into, was just what it would mean to retain um, accounts and credentials across task forces that, where we're changing over members.
mhm.
I think that we need to kind of lay those ground rules out before we even start a Twitter account. Like, what email address would it be under? Who would have access to the password, etc.
Right. Ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Issues. Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously that would really be retained by our office. For all intents and purposes, no one person, should have access to it as a like super administrator or an owner. So have to deal with it from that particular perspective. But with regards to, posting to it, you know, uh, I don't know. Yeah, again, I wish somebody was here that would had already been thinking about it, that asked me to put this on the agenda. So, all right, let's.
In fairness, I think I asked you to add it to the agenda
Okay,
with the assumption that other members might attend with more context.
okay, all right, all right. Let's no action on this. And then in the next item, I will we'll work on disposing of some of these items that are on today's agenda. Any public comment on this item around the Twitter account? We don't have enough information to be able
Um, Sure, this is Elon Musk calling in.
Yeah.
I've taken over your meetings and, oh, wait, now I owe you $1 billion. Never mind.
Thank you.
So just sort of reflecting between this and the other items, I think I opined at the last full task force meeting that it would be good to have a list of like the task force initiatives and where they are. So I think, next monitoring next request is kind of here for the moment. What you were calling information architecture proposal, you may want to rewrite as like task force website update. That seems a little more descriptive. Monitoring web conferencing is kind of here. The order of determination database. Given those initiatives, which will require some amount of time during meetings and offline as well, I would suggest with respect that creating, managing, monitoring a Twitter account and having policies around it and all of that seems like a low priority. And given some of what's going on with Twitter and some of the city's past history, and member Wolf, you'll recall Michael Petrellis bringing complaints against the police department for blacklisting him on their Twitter account, and you get into the bans and the limits and the restrictions. This seems like one with a low benefit to cost ratio that you know, if you want to come up with something like anyone who wants to get a monthly email from the task force that somebody might create after each full task force meeting to take highlights from the administrator's report, a summary of actions of what happened on complaints, you know, the list of what's upcoming at the committees and the, you know, 3 or 4 committee meetings, and say, hey, we would love if people participated, and send that out to all the anonymous moose people, Mr. Warfield, Mr. Hillier, anybody else who cares and has a pulse. That would be fine. And, you know, for that matter, city departments or anybody else who wants to subscribe. That might be an interesting thing to try doing. But, you know, this thing with the Twitter account seems to me like lots of potential problems and pitfalls and a big time sink. And for what? Is it really going to get more people to show up at meetings and pay more attention or be more sharp and focused on their anything? I am skeptical. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much for your thoughts. And let's move to the next item.
Item number 8, announcements, comments, questions, future agenda items by members of the Information Technology Committee.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that we, and I should have probably done this with each and every one of them, we'll continue to have the architectural proposal on the agenda. We'll continue to have the web conferencing item on the agenda, and that'll be for general discussion about web conferencing across the city family, and with regards to any policy or legislation that regulates or affects web conferencing. We'll maintain the order of determination database, and I think we'll change the Twitter account to just public noticing, because the ordinance allows us to do public noticing, and based upon what member of the public, Pilpel, had just mentioned, it doesn't have to be Twitter. There are other platforms. It could be email. It could be Facebook. It could be whatever. But I think we should just leave it as a little open-ended.
Yeah, it could be our website.
It could be our website. That's
We
true.
do have an updates section that does not get updated.
Right. Yeah. And then individual members can go out and promote it, on their social media networks at that point. So that's all I got for this section. Member Wong, you have anything else?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this?
I think I'm good. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
All 4 of you, including Victor. Victor's been relatively quiet tonight. I hope he's still got a pulse. Thanks. Maybe instead of an update section on the website, we could call it the lack of update section.
There you go.
Okay, more fun next time. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Okay, any other public comment on this item? Okay, hearing none. Public comment is closed. Let's move to the next item.
Item number 9, adjournment. I have 8:22.
Okay, I think we can take that by acclamation and a rising vote. Thank you very much for attending, everyone, and staff for running the meeting tonight, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Good. Take care. Bye-bye.